So, Craig, I was going to ask you, is the league against the Toronto Maple Leafs?
No, just everybody in Toronto that roots for the Leafs thinks that the league is against them. I mean, it's almost become like a comedy. I mean, I wish this could be a Saturday Night Live satire, and we could have the cast of Saturday Night Live go on and carry on, because quite frankly, it's laughable. It's laughable that people could even think that the league is against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I guess when you're in the wearing the jersey and you're a fan, you want the best for your team, and you always think, oh, they're out to get me, or they're out to get us, or whatnot. I get it. I mean, that's just part of being a fan, but there's no truth to it, and I don't care what anybody says. I shouldn't say what anybody says. Nobody's going to convince me otherwise, is what I would rather say.
Craig, we had a chance to chat the other day a little bit on this Morgan Rielly topic, and now the appeal. Like, is there a leg to stand on here, or is this something that's just part of the process, right? You've been around hockey a long time. Is this just a shot in the dark here?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, you go back to Tommy Wilson, and the only reason I bring up Tommy Wilson is he was suspended. He had to serve the full number of games in the suspension, but when it got reduced, he got money back. So, for Tommy Wilson, he had to sit out the full amount. He didn't get the number of games. Well, the number of games got reduced, which put more money back in his pocket. One of the things, and Carter, I think we were talking about this the other day. I don't think we were. The Department of Player Safety has been raising the bar. They did it earlier in the year. 4-game suspension to Charlie McAvoy. He appealed it. 4-game suspension to Rasmus Anderson. 6-game suspension to Perron. He appealed it. Now Morgan Rielly is appealing it. I think this is a real signal that the Department of Player Safety is setting a bar, and the players are like, oh my God, what's happening here? Because it's not just the games you're missing, you're also losing money. And so when the Department of Player Safety starts to raise that bar, it's not just the games you're missing, it's the money coming out of your pocket. So I think that this is now pushed back by the players and the Players Association to say, is this the right standard? And this is a great conversation, because we know that we want to make the game safer. We don't want the game to lose any of its physicality. But when the number of games goes up in suspensions, there's resistance, and there's resistance for any number of reasons. So I wouldn't call it a shot in the dark. I think there's a real methodology and a purpose behind it that leads you to appealing. But as we've seen, the one with Tommy Wilson went to the third-party arbitrator before it got reduced. The one with Charlie McAvoy, the one with David Perron, only went to the commissioner level. They never went and appealed it any further. So I think that this is just a case of pushing it to see if they can back off the Department of Player Safety. And I think that's where we run into the conundrum of, while we want the Department of Player Safety to make the game safe and mete out punishment, but not too much.
Yeah, and that's the thing you go back and forth with here. To be realistic, do you think Rielly has a case? Do you think he has a chance of obviously, if he's appealed here, but do you think he's got a chance of winning this thing?
Well, what case does he have? I would just like to hear the case. Much like Charlie McAvoy, did you mean to hit him in the head with your elbow? No. Did you hit him in the head with your elbow? Yeah. David Perron, did you mean to cross-check him in that type of manner? No. The players aren't trying to hurt other players. I would never suggest that, and I don't think they are. And we can go back to Marty McSorley wasn't trying to hurt Donald Brashear, but the fact of the matter is it's the act, right? So what's Morgan Rielly's defense? I wasn't intending to do it. Agreed. We believe you, Morgan. But you're getting suspended for a cross-check to the head in a non-hockey play. So what's your defense? I have no idea. I would love to be a fly on the wall. We should get that sponsored. We should get that sponsored by Nation Network. Get a camera in there on the hearing, and let's see how this hearing goes.
No, I like that, Craig. That'd be nice to be a fly on the wall in that one. But, moving forward here to this Leafs team right now, and the trade deadline coming, what do you see this team? They obviously had a great effort the other night with a depleted lineup against St. Louis. Is this sustainable, or Tree Living going to make some moves here to try to move this team in the right direction come playoff time?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the direction. Mike Johnson and I were talking about this in the last few days. And you look at the Atlantic Division where they are, right? And you look at Boston and you look at Florida. And I think you got to be realistic about your chances of how you match up against that team. And could they do enough at the trade deadline to get themselves in a spot where they could be competitive? And arguably, if you finish in third or you finish in second, you're going to have to go through two of those teams. And so I think that would be the first assessment. Would they be better off in a wild card and moving over to the Metro? I'm not so sure that might not. Now, I know I'm trying to plan out different scenarios. I mean, as a team and as a coach and manager, you can't do that, which gets me to answering your question, which is I think they need help on the blue line. I think they need some reinforcements on the blue line, some strength. When they traded for Jake Muzzin a couple of years ago, I said, wow, is that ever a good move? Like big, strong, territorial. And I think defenders that can really add that element to your game. I mean, Morgan Rielly is clear cut their best defenseman. And then after that, it scales back, in my view, quite significantly. And how do you bolster that lineup in there? And I think if Brad Treliving could have an opportunity to not only try to improve the team now, but try to do it with an idea that what I do now, maybe I can, kill two birds with one stone. Try to acquire a player, and if it's Hanifin or Tanev and know I can sign them, I also have them for next year and the years beyond when I know I have this group that I believe in. And we know there's every reason to believe in the core five. Let's call it the core five. There's every reason to believe in them, but building out around them, I think, is the challenge for Brad Treliving. There's opportunities, certainly, acquiring pending free agents, but if he could get those guys signed, and Brad has an advantage. He knows Tanev. He signed him as a free agent in Calgary as the manager. He traded for Hanifin. So he really knows these players, and they know him. And so if there was ever an advantage to try to build out your team going forward, and going forward means this year and in the future years, I think Brad has an opportunity that a lot of GMs don't have.
So we're a day after Valentine's Day. Let's play matchmaker. So you mentioned Calgary. Is there a name out there on the blue line that you think that just makes too much sense that could really, really help this Maple Leafs team out right now and I guess longer term too?
Well, I think it's Noah Hanifin. I know how good Chris Tanev is. We all know how good Chris is, and he's a little bit older. He would absolutely help now. I mean, I don't know what type of term he'd be looking at his age, but I think he's got lots of good hockey left in him. But Noah Hanifin is this year is a 27-year-old defenseman. Excellent, big minutes, skate, can take on the heavy lifting, and certainly you're looking for those types of players at that age. If you're going to give them a long-term contract, there's not going to be a fall-off, in my view, in Noah Hanifin's game. And to me, he fits the way the Toronto Maple Leafs want to play. They play up-tempo. They want their defense. You watch Rielly. They want everybody pushing up with that forward group. And I think Noah, I can't see, there's lots of defensemen around the league, but available defensemen to me are the ones that, like him, that I think would significantly improve the blue line and fit in exactly with how they want to play.
Yeah, I think Hanifin's severely underrated. I've been saying for weeks, if they could do it, I get both those guys. That's where I include sort of a first-round pick. But curious to get your intel. Obviously, you're really tied into the scouting department. What's your read on the Maple Leafs capital in terms of prospects right now? Because it doesn't sound like it's overly busy in terms of the cupboard, right?
Thin. There's nothing. But when you're trading first round draft picks, you're picking after the first round for the most part. Everything has been kind of thrown into the pot of trying to help this group play. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins find themselves in exactly the same position. And when you're trying to push it ahead, I mean, Tampa Bay Lightning, same thing. You're trying to push it ahead. There's a price to trying to push it ahead, and I would not suggest that there's any other way to do it right now. In a very, very last 4 years, what I call the COVID CBA, it really, with the cap not going up, it really restricted teams from being able to do some things. It took away some of the flexibility, but. Easton Cowan is their best prospect. It's not even close. And Fraser Minton has a chance to be, in my view, a good, solid, industrious third line center. We talk about Dennis Hildeby. How many teams need a goaltender? Most teams in the league have goaltending prospects in their system. After that, I mean, I think they have some guys that they're hoping can advance their game. Topi Niemelä comes to mind. But other than that, it's a very, very thin prospect pool, but not one that you would be surprised to hear that assessment of.
Yeah, Craig, obviously having, trying to push it forward and giving away prospects, you have to develop from within, right? And a saying I've been using for my first real trade deadline, like, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, right? Like, because you see that lots, right? You make a trade where it's a guy's a prospect. He turns out to be a guy like 5 years later, you're like, oh, I should have kept him. These players like Easton Cowan, Fraser Minten, are they someone that can help the Leafs right now? Or are they still a ways away? Like, where do you feel they're at in the prospect? Like, are they ready to come into the NHL?
Yeah, I'm going to use an example, Carter. A number of years back, Nick Robertson was a player that, he can help us now. They were looking, entry-level contract, everything. We're 3-4 years past where that moment came for Nick Robertson. And it's great to have high hopes, and it's great to, believe in the potential of a player, but it takes time. It takes time. So my answer on Easton Cowan and Fraser Minten is no, they can't come in and help them now. I don't think they can come in and help them next year. And I'm not so sure about the year after. And I use Nick Robertson as an example. And so that's where the real challenge comes for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have this core five. Matthew Knies falls into it. Nick Robertson is finding his way. He is coming into his own and finding his way. So you start to go, okay, what do we need to help this team and this group? And are these guys there? And when is that time? You'd love to be able to say, yeah, next year. Like last year at this time, I think you could absolutely say Matthew Knies could come in and help. I don't see that with Fraser or Easton and with respect to coming in up. So that's now, do you want to say, okay, it's 2 years and we're still right in our window. We don't want to find ourselves short there. That's a real conundrum for Brad Treliving and his management group.
It is very Toronto in terms of prospects and how people build them up before they even played a game in this league. So about a month ago, just to wrap, you mentioned that you didn't view the Maple Leafs as a Stanley Cup or a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. Is there anything they can do over the next little while, whether it's making a deal or it's in their play, that could change your mind on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I look at who the competition is. And, I just touched on the Atlantic Division. I just don't see them as in the same class as Boston or Florida. And I think they'd have a real challenge against Carolina. So let's notch them at 4. Well, that's not a top level Stanley Cup contender in my view. And I think they're thin in critical areas. You think about 2 months going down hard hockey, and it's hard hockey. And it's not about can they play hard, it's can you sustain it for 24, 25 games? Do they have the players that can sustain it? I don't think they do. And I think that for them to move forward, I know there's a lot of different discussions. Oh, add a forward, there's only so many. But scoring isn't their problem. Like, those guys score. I really believe that if they bolstered that blue line, and I keep using the term kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if they could do it from now and it builds into the future, we talk about Hanifin, we talk about Tanev, I think that would improve their chances in a real meaningful way. I don't think going and trading for a depth defenseman, when I say depth, I'm talking about a bottom pair defenseman, is going to improve their lots. I think they have to do something serious and significant if they want to improve their lots. And I'm not even so sure that puts them in the category with the 3 teams I just mentioned. It would improve their chances, but I don't think it puts them in that lot yet.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.